Hello? Is someone there?
Yes. Hi.
Hello. Who am I speaking to?
Faith?
Faith? Hi, Faith.
Yes, sir. Hi.
All right. I think you're the only one this session.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we could get started if you want to. We are doing the chapter 17, globalization and immigration, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's get started. So the first thing I wanted to do was just um, pull up a table here. So um, this is a table of all of the moral theories that we covered in the first part of the class. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm I have two columns here. We have a column that's like a yes or no column, uh, and a column that's a column for an account. So the idea here is we want to go through and try to see if we think that each of these theories, we want to think what each of these theories have to say regarding the issue in this chapter. So, what do they have to
Mm-hmm.
say regarding immigration um, and globalization? And then we'll try to give like our reasoning why it might give a yes or a no. And we can give a maybe or an uncertainty as well if we aren't totally certain. Does all that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so let's try to get started. So um, we could start at the top, or we could start however you want. We could go through ones that you think you have strong feelings about, or less strong feelings about. However you want to do it.
Okay. I guess we could just start at the top because I don't have any opinions right now.
Okay, okay, so we'll work through it.
Yeah.
So starting off divine command theory. What do you think? Does it have anything to say about this issue?
It's talking about like God, right? Like if it's morally good, it's from God, basically. It's equivalent to whether it's commanded by God, something along those lines.
Yeah. So what do you think that has to say about this particular issue?
Hmm. I guess like that theory would apply like if God said to like do borders, it'd be a yeah.
Okay.
You know?
So yes, but only if God said to have borders,
Yes.
something like that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. How about these next ones?
Mm, I'm trying to think.
It's okay.
Relativism.
It's
I'm not
it's good
sure
to
like what it
think.
would say.
Okay, that's fine. So we might put a question mark for relativism.
Yeah. Egoism, I feel like that's kind of like only if it benefits yourself.
Okay,
So it'd be
so
like, yeah.
if it's your borders or something like that,
Mm,
something like that. Okay.
yeah. Hinduism. I feel like, because that's the one I'm talking about, like if it's absence of pain, something like that.
Yeah. Absence of
So,
pain, presence of pleasure.
so if it brings pleasure of opening the borders so people aren't in pain anymore, I feel like that'd be, yeah.
Okay. Maybe maybe if the immigration reduces suffering?
Yes.
Okay. Would that be similar to the desire satisfaction?
Yes, I do think so. Because if you desire to, then I feel like it'd be a yeah.
What about if the people who live in the country, the citizens of the country, don't desire the immigration? Do you think that counts as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Be like a yes and a no.
sure. Yes, no, maybe so. Um,
Yeah.
okay. How about these next ones?
Hmm. I feel like I don't know.
You don't know? For
Do you have
consequentialism?
something to say about consequences? Because I feel like
Well, we can ask the
it'd be
question, do immigration and globalization bring about good consequences? Like, what are the
good consequences.
benefits? Yeah, or bad consequences. So, are there benefits? Are there um, costs in terms of the consequences that immigration will bring about?
I mean, there's bad consequences, like who you're letting in, but then there's good consequences because you have workers to help do the dirty jobs because they need money.
Okay, so there are bad and good consequences.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe something like that.
Mm.
Yes, no, maybe. What about these next ones?
I mean, if it's your duty to do it, then yes. But if it's not your duty, then
Okay, so yes,
depends on what.
if it's your
If
duty.
it's yeah.
So there are two principles for the Kantianism that we talked about. We talked about humanity and universalizability, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
do you think that this relates to either of those principles?
Possibly. Yeah.
In what way might it relate? What do you think?
Hmm. I'm trying to like remember what they were,
Okay. Well, we
like what the
can
difference was in them.
yeah, well we can just base off the names. So, um do we think we should treat immigrants with humanity, like as fellow human beings?
I would think you would because they are human beings.
Okay. And the universalizability is like, is it, can we make it universal? Um, can we make immigration universal? Can we make globalization universal? Those kinds of things.
I mean, technically, yeah, because there's immigrants everywhere, depending on where you live.
Okay.
Like we're immigrants to Europe, and Europe's immigrants to us. So,
Okay.
hmm.
Any thoughts on the next ones?
Eh, nope, not really.
Okay.
How would I answer this?
Well, so social contract theory, that's this contractarianism one. Um, does immigration or globalization, uh, uh, does that follow the social contract, or does it breach the social contract?
Mm, if it's morally right,
Okay. Um, well, so the social contract theory would say that following the contract is the basis of what's morally right. So, um, like like we can ask a question for this one, like, uh, are immigrants part of the social contract? So, when people come together to make mutually beneficial agreements with each other, uh, are immigrants included in that, or are they excluded from that? What do you think?
I feel like they could be included if they're like in the country or
Okay,
like
could be
are
included.
citizenized.
Okay, so they could. Did you say what was the last word you said?
If they're citizens of
Okay,
the country.
okay,
I'm kind of just going based off like how it is in the US.
okay. So if they're being made citizens, it's like maybe they're being brought into the social contract or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're not citizens, can we? What do you think? Can we say that we don't have we have like we don't have the same contract with them? We like like the citizens have a contract between each other, but they don't have that same contract with immigrants, something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Cause like I feel like when you're an immigrant, it's kind of like you don't know the history fully of like what we do or how our morals are, because it's like a different part of the world, you know. So it's kind of like their social contract is like different from ours, so we wouldn't really
Okay.
accept it in a way. It
Okay.
sounds really horrible, but
But maybe they have a different social contract in their country, and
hmm
and so in order for them to be brought into our social contract, they have to go through some steps, to become part of the contract or something like that.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we're
And then
almost done.
yeah, uh, prima facie duties. Um, I feel like yeah, if it's the better route to go,
Okay.
like
So,
if it solves more problems than creates one, I feel like you go with that one.
okay. So it could depend, right? Um,
Yeah.
depends. Okay.
Hmm. I feel like natural law would say yeah for globalization and immigration. 'Cause I feel
Okay.
like natural law would be like open all the borders because we're all the same human. We all have the same reasoning and behaviors.
All right. We're all humans. We all have the same nature. We all follow the same natural law. So
Yeah,
open the borders. Okay.
that's what I feel like that they'd say.
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
Is it virtuous, do you think, to immigrate or let people immigrate? Is that a virtuous thing?
Mm,
Is it virtuous to hold the border so that people can't immigrate? Could that be virtuous too?
it could.
Okay, maybe
It
we'll put.
depends on like the person, I feel like.
Okay, depends on person.
Because if it's like a family struggling and wants to make a better life, I feel like then they say yeah. But if it's just like the cartels wanting to come across the borders, I don't think virtue would say yes to that.
Okay, so again, it might depend. All right,
Hmm.
and we're almost done. Feminist and care ethics.
Yeah. Um, I don't know what they'd say. That's
Okay.
kind of like a, I don't know.
Yeah, so the feminist one, I don't know. It's not. I don't know if women immigrate more than men or something like that. We could ask a question like that.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know how to, like that's more of like a history type of thing. Like
Maybe.
seeing the statistics.
And then care ethics, like, are we asking a question like, do we have to care about the immigrants or do we have to care more about the citizens or something
I
like
feel
that?
like you care more about the citizens than the immigrants.
Okay. All right. Well,
So
Well, good job getting through these. I know that some of them can be confusing or hard, so thank you for
yeah,
bearing through. You managed to basically give some kind of answer for each one, though, right? Um,
yeah, I tried.
yeah, you tried. And some of them it makes sense, right? So some of them it seems like some of them are probably yes, some of them might be no's, some of them are maybes. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. So, the next thing I want to do, I want to ask you, um, from this chapter, I want to move on and talk about some of the arguments that this chapter looked at. So we had a bunch of arguments. So, for example, I'm pulling up here on the screen the reduction of suffering argument. But the chapter had a bunch of these arguments. And I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, were any of these arguments particularly convincing to you, or were any of the arguments unconvincing, like you thought they were bad, or you thought they were
Well,
interesting, or any arguments you want to talk about? Maybe you could point them out.
I feel like the majority of them was just like, well, what if it's not your moral duty? And I was just kind of like, well, how do you determine if it is your moral duty or not? Like,
Okay, can you give me an example? So, like, is this reduction of suffering an example?
uh, I think it was. Or something like that. Like basically just saying the total opposite. And I'm like, well, I mean, anyone can say the total opposite, but is it true, you know?
Yeah. So we can give these arguments, and then we can try to say the opposite,
Mm-hmm.
and counter the arguments. And we have to try to figure out which ones of these premises we can accept and which ones we can reject. Um, so yeah, what do you think? Well, let's go through this first one. as an example, I guess. And if you think of any
Sure.
others, we can go through more. Um, so here we have reduction of suffering. We can reduce the suffering of others without incurring significant sacrifice on our part. Then we are morally obligated to do so. We can reduce the suffering of the world's poor without incurring significant sacrifice on our part. So do you think one and two are true? What are your thoughts?
Hmm. Well, why does it have to be like without us incurring our significant sacrifice? Like why can't we sacrifice? Like why does it have to be like, oh, we don't have to sacrifice? So if we don't have to sacrifice, then we can help them. You know?
Okay, so
Is
so
that
you
part of what it's saying?
do you think that well, so like you could give an example. So like let's say you could cure somebody's disease, like they're dying of a disease, and just for $10 you could buy them the cure for the disease, and that's a small sacrifice for you, but it would save their life. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what the question is sort of getting at. It's like, do we have an obligation to help them when it costs us so little and helps them so much? What do you think?
I don't think we're obligated to, but if you feel like your morals go that way, then I would.
Okay, so you don't think we're obligated to?
Not like we don't have to, no, like it's not our, but it's more of like going out of your way to do it. Like it's not like a have to, basically.
Okay, so in my example, you could spend $10 to save somebody's life. You don't think that you
Mm-hmm.
have to do it. It might be good. It might be like good if you did or something, but you don't think it's like a duty to.
Yeah.
Okay. So you basically, it sounds like you don't accept one. So the counter to one is that we are still not morally obligated to do so. Um,
Yeah.
do you think there's any exceptions to this, like where we are morally obligated to help people?
I mean, maybe there could be some.
Okay.
If your morals are that way for people, then yeah.
Okay.
Depends on if they're in a rough situation or not. Because if it's just random people coming in and out and they don't really like,
Okay.
I don't know. I see immigration as people trying to get a better life than just like, because usually immigrants are from people from like Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico, or I mean, there's some immigrants from Europe, but I feel like down here we have a lot of immigrants from the South.
Sure. Is that do you think that that's an important factor?
Where they come from?
Yeah, does that have anything to do with how we should treat them?
I mean, okay. I feel like you should treat them all the same. Like,
Okay.
don't treat one super good and then treat this other immigrant really bad. Like, I
Okay.
don't think that's right.
So treat them all like they're humans or something. Treat them like they're equals.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, so back to this question though. Let's say I'll give a different example. So you um let's say somebody just you were going home, you go up to your house, you go up to your door, and there's someone that's just lying there unconscious, and they're bleeding, and it looks like they're gonna bleed to death. They're just lying there. Uh,
Mhm.
in a case like that, do you think that you would be obligated to help them, or like by calling 911 or something, or do you think that you could just leave them where they are bleeding? What do you think?
Uh, I'd probably call 911.
Okay, so you would do it. Um,
Yes.
do you think you have a duty to, or do you think it would be okay to just leave them?
I personally don't think it's okay to leave them. I feel like in that case, I would feel
Okay,
some sort of duty to make sure they're okay
okay,
because they're on my doorstep, you know? I can't just leave them there.
okay, yeah. Um, so it sounds like in that case you would accept number one them, because you would even though it's a little inconvenient for you to have to help them, you still do feel like you should help them.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
I mean, I feel like I'd go through a lot to help people,
Okay.
but I don't feel obligated. It's just like, I guess that's in my nature to want to help people.
Okay. So if somebody else didn't help them, would you feel like they could be judged for not helping them? Like if you found out that your friend just let the person bleed to death on the ground and they didn't help, do you think they would did something wrong, or was it not wrong?
I do think I'd probably get on to my friend about that.
Okay.
Be like, why'd you just leave him there?
Okay. So then the next question I want to ask would be something like, is this situation different from the medicine situation I gave earlier, where you could spend $10 to save somebody's life by buying them medicine? Is it different? Like the person bleeding out on the floor versus the person that needs medicine, are those different to you at all? Because it seemed like you have different answers for those two different ones.
You're comparing it. No, I don't feel like they're different.
Okay, so you don't, so you think that it would be, do you want to change your answer then for the medicine one, that you think maybe you do have an
Yeah.
obligation? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe you're more convinced by this reduction of suffering argument than you originally thought then. Um, what do you think?
Yeah. I personally didn't really understand what it was saying.
You didn't really understand what it was saying?
Not really, no.
Okay. Do you feel like you understand it better now?
Yes. I feel like examples really help me like get what it's saying, you know?
Okay. Okay. So now that you understand it, you think you feel like maybe it's a better argument than you thought. Okay. Were there any other arguments that you recall that you wanted to talk about?
There was one. It was like the freedom to basically like you have the freedom to go wherever you want.
Okay.
Forgot
Freedom
what
of
the freedom of
movement.
movement. I
Yeah.
liked the I liked the argument and I also liked what the counter arguments were saying. Like I thought both of them were really valid.
Okay, interesting. So that means you're kind of torn about this one because you could go both
Yeah.
ways. Okay. So let's have a look. So freedom of movement is a human right and so had by all humans. Freedom of movement entails going where you like. Therefore, every human has a right to go wherever he or she likes. And therefore, nations are morally required to open their borders to anyone who wants to gain entry. So you kind of like these premises, but you also kind of don't like them. I guess you kind of want to counter them.
Yeah, I thought like some of like the freedom of as a human you have the right to travel wherever you want. Like I thought that was a good
Okay.
or to move wherever you want. I thought that was a good one. And the one that says every human has the right to go wherever he or she likes as a human right. Like I thought that was like very valid, but then the counter arguments, I was like, that's also very valid too.
Okay. Okay. So, um, here's the counter arguments. So, freedom of movement is not a human right, not had by all humans. And freedom of movement does not entail going where you like. So, um, so which I guess we could think of some examples here. So, um, so going wherever you like, that's a lot of places, right? So
Mhm.
let's try to think of some places that so we pretty much all think that people should be able to like walk in public places, like walk in the public park and walk down the street, right? And
Mhm.
um, we have a right to do those things. Uh, what are some things we don't think we have a right to walk into? Do you think we have a right to like
Private
walk?
property? I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, there we go. Like if you just walk into somebody's front door without asking.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay. So that's an exception to the right of movement then. I can't just move into your house without asking.
Yeah.
Um what about some other examples? So like what about like bathrooms?
Yeah, I don't think you can just walk in on that either.
Yeah.
I
Um
definitely don't think that.
yeah. So like and so it's interesting, bathrooms could be a public, but they become like private momentarily when people are in there. Um
Hmm.
so that's like an example of where a public place actually is prohibited. Yeah, so do you think we can limit it, like maybe we do believe we have a right to move around in some places but not others. Um does that sound more reasonable to you?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. So if we have a right to move around some places not others, um then it's like okay, the border crossing. Is that an example of a place where we should have a right to move, or is that an example where we shouldn't have a right to move? What do you think?
Man, hmm I don't know. I'm kind of a more of a border person.
Okay,
Like, like if you want to come our country, you can, but we're not just gonna let anybody in because we still
okay,
want to keep our
okay,
country the way it is and not over flooded with immigrants.
okay. So would you say that's similar to the house? Like I don't just let any random person into my house. And similarly, I don't let just any random person into my country. I let some people into the house and I let some people into the country. What do you think? Do those sound? Does that sound like a good comparison?
I think it does because
Okay.
I'll let you in my house if I know you or if I've seen you around before or if we have like a connection, like I would let you in.
Yeah.
And
So
I
you
guess same
trust
way
those people.
for the U.S. Like if you do what you're supposed to do, they kind of like know who you are, and know they could trust you to let you in.
Okay. Okay. Do you think um do you think there are any exceptions to that rule?
I mean, if some random person came to my doorstep and said, "Hide me, some psycho's chasing me," I'd probably
Okay.
help them out.
Yeah, yeah, good example. Good example. So, um what would be the analogy for the border then? Like somebody who comes to the border. and is being chased by a psycho. Does that ever happen?
Oh, I'm sure it has. Yeah.
Am I right to think that that's kind of what a refugee is? Is somebody trying to escape a bad situation?
Hmm.
Okay.
Or maybe
S-
they'd let like a refugee in and like give them the papers to become a citizen later or something.
Yeah, yeah. So they let them in because they're in danger, um,
Hmm.
and then later they figure it out. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Sounds reasonable. Um,
Hmm.
any other stuff you want to talk about before we call it a day?
No, those were the freedom of movement was the only one that I was like, huh.
You thought that one was interesting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I
Well,
never really thought about it.
okay. Yeah, you never really thought about like the idea that we might be free to move around places, like that might be a freedom we have.
Yeah. I
Yeah. I guess it's not like in the Constitution. Like we have freedom
think
of
it is.
speech, freedom of religion is one in the Constitution. Um, yeah, I don't remember a freedom of movement. Maybe it's in there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
don't know either, but
Do you have a topic picked out for your last session with me?
no, I do not.
Okay. Well, just when you think of one, just post it on the list and pick yourself out a time, and that'll be the last week of class that we'll have that discussion.
Do I just pick like any topic? Like, how does that work?
So I call it a pop culture topic. So um, I'm open to you picking books, movies, TV shows. If you can think of something else you want to pick, I'd be open to that too. You just have to relate it to what we've talked about in class so far. So as long as you can relate it, then I will accept it as a topic.
So, like, any theories or anything like that?
Yeah, you could relate it to one of the theories. You could relate it to one of the problems that we're talking about. You could relate it to both a theory and a problem, or more than one theory, more than one problem. All of that would be great.
Okay. And do I like email you and let you know, or do I
Well, if you wanted
just
to,
type it in?
you, I have a space on the sign up sheet for it already. So that's all you have to do is just sign up on the sign up sheet. But if you want to email me and run it by me first, you can do that as well, but it's not required.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. I'll talk to you later.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye, Faith.
Bye.